Hi, I'm Lisa Song Sutton, entrepreneur based in Las Vegas, and this is Pursue Vegas.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Pursue Vegas podcast. I'm your host, Dave Berlin.
And I'm your co-host, Tawny Nguyen.
And you already know what I'm about to say. I am excited, but this is a whole different level of excited. We have the incredible Lisa Song Sutton on today's show. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. What are you excited about right now? Because every time I see your stuff, I get fired up. You're doing so many things, but not so many things that are just completely random. It's like all with this big ambition for entrepreneurship, right? You've got the Veteran Fund. What are you excited about right now?
Well, we're closing in on Q3, obviously getting ready for a big Q4. So I guess kind of all of the above has been really, really exciting. With the Veteran Fund in particular, we actually just closed out. We initiated the phase of our final close for our fundraising portion of the fund. So it's been super exciting. It's been a 2-year journey with my partners with that. As you know, we're a $20 million fund. We invest in early stage technology companies that are focused on national security and dual use. They must have a veteran or a military spouse on leadership team. And it's just been such an incredible journey. So that's been a lot of fun. Otherwise, everything else has just been, kind of keeping our foot on the gas. Real estate has been crazy here in Las Vegas in particular. Really no slowdown, even with the interest rates and these different things you're seeing, like headlines in the media. In particular, you're still having Californians in particular every week either moving here, buying or renting here because of the restrictive nature of, California laws and real estate over there. So, we're seeing just a lot of migration still happening here. And so that's been really great for our real estate market too.
I love that. Now, we've had so many different people on the show from different walks of life, all with different paths of Las Vegas. What has Las Vegas been for you as far as home? When did you get here? And what keeps you here in Las Vegas?
So I moved here 14 years ago, which is crazy to say. I moved here after law school, and I moved here in the recession. I moved here in 2010, finished school, was getting ready for like my big girl job at the law firm. And it was just this place where like everything was like half off, right? Because it was the recession. So I was like, this is amazing. We started buying real estate here in 2011, back when it was like, $90 a foot in Summerlin. I mean, it's just like, it was just such an amazing time to plant roots here. And certainly, what keeps me here, as you know, I'm a former Miss Nevada. During that time, I did nearly 500 community appearances, volunteering in schools, reading in hospitals, working with countless nonprofits. And it's really the community, right? The local community here is incredible. And even though I'm not born and raised here, my family is not from here, right? I didn't even go to school here, but because of the time that I've spent here, building jobs, building communities, volunteering, working with a lot of nonprofits. I just feel like I've been so rewarded by the community here. And so certainly it's built, a sense of loyalty. And I'm just so grateful to Vegas and everything it's done for me.
I love it. Well, you're definitely the people's people. You had posted something recently on social media that I took into practice just to see what would happen, and that's saying yes. And so I'm always grateful. Every time I've reached out, I've asked you to be on panels. You helped out with Global Entrepreneurship Week. You've helped out with stuff for Bunker Labs in the past. You've been right there every time you take the call. I always ask for the same thing. I feel like it's like either be on the show or be on a panel, and every time you say yes. And I'm so grateful for that. You say yes to a lot of things, though. So what are some of the other philanthropy efforts that you're really passionate about here in the community? I know you're part of a lot of organizations, but what are the things that really light you up and get you excited?
Yeah. So, on the nonprofit side, I'm glad I had started with kind of this like really wide stance of it, especially from the pageant experience, especially during that time. It was like any nonprofit that was here operating, we were doing something with them, right? So whether it was volunteering at their red carpet or being their, gala MC or just running around volunteering, those were all kind of roles and responsibilities. So now I've really been able to kind of hone in my focus. One of the volunteer activities that I do on a regular basis, on a weekly basis, I have 2 corgis, as you know. One of them is named Cupcake, and she is a certified hospital pet therapy dog. And so we go volunteer at Summerlin Hospital, and we get to visit the kids. So 6th floor is kids oncology. These are kiddos with cancer. 5th floor is kids ICU, and the 1st floor is pediatric ER. And it's just such a win-win. I get to bring my corgi into the hospital, and she loves kids. She loves people. And so she gets to go to a place where everyone loves her and they just want to pet her. And it's just a wonderful, volunteer opportunity. So that's something I really enjoy and do consistently.
Wow, that's amazing. Like, you got me at the corgi thing. All I can think about.
You got me at Cupcake, which we'll talk about, I'm sure.
She's the sweetest, yeah. And she just has so much fun. And the kids just light up, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some of them are there for a few days. Some of them are there for a few weeks. Some of them are there for a few months. Mm-hmm. And it's just something different for them, right? It breaks up their day. They get a chance to spend, 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it is, just playing with the dog and like kind of being a normal kid. The parents appreciate it. They love it, right? Again, it breaks up their day too. And there have been so many instances, like I said, 1st floor is pediatric ER. So these are kids who, maybe they've come in with a broken wrist or like some trauma has just happened where it's like fresh. They're still crying. Maybe the nurse is trying to get that, fluids in or something. Like everything has just happened. And you hear like screaming going on, and you're like, oh boy. And so they'll literally just open up the door and they're like, do you want to say hi to Cupcake? It just distracts them immediately enough where they're like still like, trying to catch their breath, but now they're like mesmerized and they're, distracted enough to like get the IV in, like get something going. I've had so many parents be like, thank you. Like, thanks for bringing this dog in here, because it just distracts them long enough. So it's just super cool. It's so fulfilling. And yeah, we walk in there. No one knows who I am there, but they all know Cupcake, right? Yeah. So as soon as we walk in, I mean, the nurses, everyboady like Cupcake, like they're so excited to see
Cupcake.
her. Yeah. I'm just like the dog walker. Like I'm the lady who brings her.
That's amazing. Like, thank you so much for pouring back into the community and your work with philanthropy and the way leadership is in this town, specifically with Asian women. That's something I love to like lean into, specifically in like the AI community.
You're Asian?
Surprise! And the work that it takes to be in this type of world in hospitality and just surrounded in real estate and in all of the work that you're doing to pour into the community. Is there anything like challenges or things that you face or misconceptions that you've had to face as an Asian woman making waves like in this town to where you feel like you've had your back against the wall when you first moved here, starting to put roots in here? And what are some of those things that you're like still working through, right, during your journey here to build Las Vegas? And some of those things that like we don't really get to see outside of like social media and Miss Nevada and all of these other like fancy superficial things that people see on your social media that like you have to face.
Yeah. Well, so I was the first Miss Nevada of Asian descent. And I didn't know that when I was competing in the pageant. It wasn't something I like ran on or like had thought of. But after I won, it started to pop up on social and people were posting about how I was the first Miss Nevada of Asian descent. And it was so interesting because that was when I realized like, wow, like there's kind of a certain level of responsibility that comes with the visibility, right? And that's when I had young girls reaching out to me and on social media and saying like, oh my gosh, like, I am so excited that you won. Like, I've never seen someone who looks like me, like win Miss Nevada. So that was really cool to experience. And it wasn't something I had thought of prior to that. I think here in Southern Nevada, at least, I do feel like we're actually a pretty diverse community. And so I don't know that I've experienced maybe any like pushback being like a young Asian woman here, but I have experienced pushback just being a young woman in business here. I remember this is like 2013. So I used to own a cupcake business. We had that for 11 years. And when we were just getting started, we were trying to get our cupcakes into the MGM. And we ended up doing a collab with the day club there with the pool. But to get the meeting, we sat in and their president at the time came in and he was like, you girls are cute. Are the owners coming? And we were like,
no,
it's us. Like we were just like, Like it was obviously, it was like kind of weird and awkward. But I think it was just, and this person he was older and old school. And so I didn't take like offense to it, but it was more just like, okay, this person is like not used to seeing
Asians
or just young, like young people or young women maybe, who are, whether it's the owner of a business or, have been able to secure a meeting or whatever that is. There was definitely surprise when we were like, no, it's us. And he was just like, oh, he was like, sorry. Like it was awkward, it was an awkward interaction. So I think, just kind of interactions like that where you meet people and they expect that either you must be an assistant or like your boyfriend or your husband must own the company or, there's always like some level of surprise there. And you're like, no, it's just us,
How did you come up with that idea? Was that really the first big idea that you put into action here in Nevada?
Yeah, so that was the first company I started. And we started that when I was still working at the firm. So I was working my job at a law firm, doing business litigation and business bankruptcy. And I mean, I liked it. It's not like I hated my job or hated the people I worked with and was like searching for something else to do. I was just working my job. And then Danielle, who was my co-founder with Sin City Cupcakes, she called me and she was like, hey, like I've been making these alcohol cupcakes. And I was like, what? I was like, that's an amazing idea. And they would crush in Vegas. You should move here. Like I made all the mistakes in the beginning, right? This is my first company. She was in Florida and I was like, you should move here. I just bought a house in Summerlin. Like you should move here and we should start the company. Like I'll help you start the company. And so that was my first foray into like starting something. I didn't know how to bake when we started it. I kept my day job the first 18 months that the company was alive because companies take money. So I literally was like working at the firm, a full-time job. And then every like spare penny I had, we were like shoveling it into the company. And then during the day when I was at work, Danielle was like running the business during the day. But nights and weekends, I was baking, I was running deliveries, I was helping set up events. Like, it's a grind in the beginning. But it was so fun because we were building this really fun business. And we felt like it was on brand to be drinking all the time. So it was like... Yeah, it was a disaster, but so much fun.
So at what point did you really feel like that broke that threshold and took off?
Yeah, I mean, it was just, when you start hitting revenue caps, right, where you're just like, we made a lot of money, like you're like surprised. And I think it's just a function of realizing like when you are in a W-2 position, somewhere there can be a cap, right? So even working at the firm, I was a third year associate when I left, and my salary was like $140,000 a year, which is it's great money. It's great money as a 20-something-year-old, right? But the reality is, it's like I'd mentally had this idea of like, oh, like I'm going to be on track to make partner, and that's going to take a minimum of 10 years, and hopefully by the time I make partner, I could be earning $1 million between salary and bonus, right? Like that's the goal. It's like a 10-year plan so that by the time that you're in your late 30s, pushing 40, you hopefully could be making $1 million in compensation. Meanwhile, as an entrepreneur, right? Like you can make $1 million selling cupcakes and you don't have to wait 10 years, right? Like there's, or real estate or, like all these other, anything, right? Anything that you build, essentially it's sales, right? And there's no cap on sales, and there's especially no cap on like a company you build yourself. And so that was like the biggest lesson for me, where I was like, whoa, it like opened up my eyes, and I was like, I'm over here, excited about my 140,000 when like, there's massive opportunity over here. And I feel like it came easier than like going to school, doing all the things, like it was just a totally different journey, and it was more fun to do it that way.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that there's this, you mapped it out. You were saying you're making 140K, but then like there's probably one of those months that almost hits the same as like what your your annual salary is. And then you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Is that the breaking point for you to realize that you can be making more money? Like doing that, is that when you decided to walk away from the law firm?
Yeah, I mean, it was that along with the realization like, wow, I can have my own company as long as I team up with an operations partner, which is what we did when we first started the Cupcakes. And I was like, wait, so like I could own my own, I could own multiple companies, like as long as I'm teaming up with operational partners. Let's do that. Like it was just more fun, you know? And so with the firm I still have a really good relationship with my old boss from then, and he's actually now a United States bankruptcy trustee. So it's great from like a, you know, real estate standpoint, deal flow standpoint, just to like kind of keep a pulse on like what's happening in Nevada and the economy and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think of how different my life would be if I would have just stayed there working, you know, and I kind of worked my way up and made partner, and that's fine. I have friends from school who have done exactly that, and they live great lives. But yeah, I'm so glad that I went entrepreneur.
So there's a lot of things that have happened in between, but I do want to speak to the partner, right? So as a partner with the Veteran Fund, that was something that how did that happen? And you know, where did you stood up for yourself and you said, no, I want to be partner. So what was that experience? How did you get into that whole world?
So with the VC fund, I had been angel investing for about 7 years prior to that. And it was just, you know, angel investing it's small early checks, right? As an individual, you're writing 25K, 50K checks into very, very early stage companies, mostly just into founders that you really believe in and you like what they're building and you're excited about them and you're hoping that it'll go somewhere. After having done that for years, I was just like, how can I like diversify my investments? And so I was looking into venture, and, you know, I didn't know much about venture as a founder because I'd never raised money as a founder. I'd always self-funded and then bootstrapped. And so with the venture, I was like, I want to learn about this, but it felt like a black box. But I was just like, I have to know about this. Like, how is it like every person I know in private equity and VC, like they're like, you know, killing it. So I'm like, I need to learn about this and like get involved. And so I started looking for VC funds that I could LP into, I could invest into as a limited partner. And started conversations with them and started doing due diligence on who I wanted to invest in. And I mean, one of them in particular, you know, I flew out to Park City, did DD on the fund there, met with their general partners, spent 2 days with them. And I remember flying back to Vegas. So I'd asked them when we were all together, I said, what else are we doing for these founders besides writing checks? And like, no one really had a good answer. It was more just like, get them to their next raise. Like, you know, we're early stage, you know, this is how it works. So I remember flying back to Vegas and I was just kind of like, is that venture? Like, maybe it is, because I don't know. Mm-hmm. And then not even 2 weeks later, Justin Nahama, who's now one of my partners in the fund, he and I knew each other previous. He called me and he was like, hey, so I've teamed up with 2 of my buddies and we've created this VC fund, would love to talk to you about it. And I was like, that is so crazy. I had just put this out in the universe. And so we end up chatting. They tell me what they're building with the Veteran Fund. It totally resonated with me. And I was like, I'm in, you know, so I joined them initially as an LP, as an investor. And I called Justin back 2 days later and I was like, what is it going to take for me to be a GP, a general partner? And he was like, it's not really how it works. He was like, we can't, well, he was just like, we can't turn all of our LPs into GPs, you know? And I was like, look, it's fund 1, it's early. Like, I know you know me, but like the other 2 guys, you know, Mike and Ryan at that time, I didn't know them well and they didn't know me well. We only met on Zoom. I was like, I'll fly out to California. Let's all like sit down together face to face and let's hash out what it could look like for me to join the GP team. One, I know I could bring another LP. Like, I'll be a value add. I know I will be. I know I can bring another LPs. I know I can be a value add. But most importantly, I want to learn about venture. I want to learn about the fund, and I want to get a chance to do it from like the ground level and like the inner workings, right? Because staying on the outside as an LP, as an investor, like somewhere you're still removed from it, right? There's less risk on it, but like you're still removed. And so I was like, I'm down to be like in the trenches with you guys. And so he was just like, you're not going to let this go, are you? And I was like, no. And so yeah, I flew out there and we all met together and we worked out a deal. And I just said, look, I was like, you guys, it's fund one. I was like, this is going to work. So like, we're going to be on a multi-decade journey together. So I will take less in fund one. And then we can talk about fund two and like subsequent funds, as like equitable partners. And they were just like, oh my God. But this lady. But they've been amazing to work with. And I truly feel like I have learned so much in the last 2 years. I got a crash course in venture, right? Because I get to be like on the inner workings of it.
Yeah, like pre-seed before Series A and all that stuff. It kind of sounds like that's where you guys are headed, or I don't know where you guys are at.
That's the stage we invest in is pre-seed. Yep.
Nice. Okay. And with that being said, with entrepreneurship and like, with us being like Asian women, sometimes we don't know what to say no to. And I know that you've said like yes to a lot of things. And how do you differentiate that on yourself, on your like personal inner work to know like, hey, this is what I want to lean into. This is what I have to say no to. This is what I'm super excited for. Just because as an entrepreneur, you have that itch. And sometimes, it's either shiny or it's not. It's money or it's not. It's feelings or it's not. And all of that gut feelings and all of the experiences and opportunities that are thrown at you like on the daily, like how do you differentiate what opportunity fits for you and your calling and your vision and what you want to do with your life in the next season? Yeah,
so that was something I struggled with for a long time, actually. I literally would just like pursue everything and say yes to everything. A couple of years ago, I did an exercise with one of my real estate mentors, Ken McElroy, and we sat down in his office and he rolled out butcher paper and he was like, write down all your stuff, lady. He was like, write down all the stuff you have going on. So it's like all the companies, all my investments, all the nonprofits, all the volunteer work, like all the boards you're on, like everything, write it all down. So I write it all down on this butcher paper that's across the desk. And he gave me different color markers and he was like, circle the ones that make you money. So I'm like, okay, so I'm circling. There's a whole right side of the page that has no circles, by the way. And I was like, so then he's like, circle the ones you could see yourself doing for the next 10 years. I was like, okay, so I'm circling. And then he was like, circle the ones where the work that you do is like impactful. It's purposeful. It's meaningful. Like you feel meaningful doing the work that you do with whatever that is, whether it's a business or nonprofit or whatever. So I'm circling. And that one exercise alone, like it was so wonderful to have it in my face because after that exercise, there were several nonprofits that I came off their board, right? I told them I wouldn't be, serving on the board moving forward. No hard feelings. It's just I didn't feel like I was adding value, right? That one exercise alone was what got me thinking about what if we exited the cupcakes? What if we sold it? Because I had never thought of that up until that point. And yet I was so far removed, both of us were so far removed from the day-to-day operations. It had been probably years since I'd baked consistently. Like, I'd help with events. Like we'd help with like big events or like the big golf tournaments or like the celebrity stuff. We would like insert ourselves. But I was so focused on the real estate, the brokerage, the shipping stores, like the other things I was doing that it was just like so far removed for me. And the only circle it had was that it made money. I couldn't see myself doing it for another 10 years. I didn't feel like the work I was doing was like purposeful at all anymore. And so that was a really clarifying exercise. And I would definitely encourage anyone to like sit down, like ask yourself those questions of all the things that you have on your plate. And then any new opportunities that come your way, same thing, right? Like ask yourself, like, one, does it make money? Like whether that's important or not, right? But like, does it make money? Could you see yourself doing it for the next 10 years? And does the work that you're doing feel impactful? Does it feel purposeful? Or is it just like a fluff thing? Are you adding it to your resume? You're adding it to your LinkedIn, but it's not helpful, right? You don't feel purposeful. You don't feel like you're adding value. I'd encourage anyone to ask yourself those questions.
Yeah, because I feel like that's a lot of thing that new entrepreneurs, when they get into this town and they're excited. They want to do everything and anything with anyone, one, to make money, and two, it's just, it feels so good to like go on that chase, because until you don't really know what you're meant to do. And then you have to like start kicking different buckets, but the clarity. And, someone said something to me like a long time ago when I was like having all these hands in different pockets. They're like, if you're everywhere, like you're nowhere, because you're just spread out so thin that you're just going to hit walls, and you're driving, and, like, when are you going to change the tires, because you're not taking care of what actually truly matters. So that's something I really want to ask, like someone that's so active in the community. It's like, how do you choose that thing? And I know we struggle with that too. And a lot of other entrepreneurs listening to this podcast are going to be like, oh, because it's fun to like collect accolades and all the fun stuff, kind of like Mario Kart, like you're trying to get all the mushrooms and trying to level up. But like at the same time, like, any of this like really matters,
right?
Like where are you actually going? Like where are you setting the intention and GPS of where you want to direct your life, and how do you want to help other people? And like, are you really helping other people, or are you just chasing the next thing? So so that's something that I'm really curious about, just on myself. And I know Dave and I have struggled with this, and we've had conversations about this to where, when we mastermind and hub and all that stuff, it's like, stop chasing new things. It's just like pick something and then focus on that. And that's everyone else's struggles.
Well, yeah, even how you and I got connected, you had Mike Kim on your show. And one of the things that I saw early on was like one of his first presentations was influence, impact, or income. What's the most important thing? And every one of those will take you in a different path. And it depends on where you are right now. Like I've spent seasons where for me, I was not going for influence. It was always going for more impact. But a lot of times income was all the way at the back end. And then I would suffer from that. So thank you for sharing all that, because you've always been an inspiration. And as you look at, even like just last year, right? I joined the team at Vets and Tech, and then it was so great to be outside of the city. And we got to, hang out in San Francisco, and just like, it was so unique to see, because I saw you at one of the events a long time ago, and I've just followed your stuff ever since. But it's been so great to work with you in that space. And just to see you keep growing. You said something, though, that I wanted to touch on, because you said I had just put that out into the universe earlier in the conversation. How real is all of the stuff like manifestation? And, you post a lot of very inspiring stuff. Where does that come from for you? Where did that ignite inside? And where did something just click where you're like, this is the truth. This is where we're going?
I think just intentionality, right? Like, I do think there's something real and very tangible about that intentionality of like pouring your thoughts or your collective kind of wishes into whatever direction or pursuit is important to you. And I think something as simple, like I think most entrepreneurs I've met as well are like, we're like eternal optimists, right? We're always like, oh my God, that's a great idea. That's going to work. Like, you have to be that way though, I think, right? I think anyone who is successful has some like base layer of optimism, because you have to believe that something could actually work even though you don't have the data in front of you right now, right? There's some sort of like optimism there that you're looking for the silver lining. You're looking for like what the possibility could be and what you could mold it into or what you could drive it into. So I think that intentionality and that kind of positive energy is so important. And the second that you don't have that and you feel, unmotivated or, whatever it is, like that's where you feel yourself kind of start to sputter out and you're like, oh, like it's, and everyone has that, right? We call it the trough of sorrows, like where there's period of time where you're just like, this is terrible. I'm not doing a good job. Yeah. And that's where like the mental grit comes in, right? Like you have to have the discipline of being like, you know what, this is not great. And I feel very unmotivated and I'm not excited right now, but this is the time that I have to dig in the most and keep consistent, like stay consistent, and just see it through, right? See it through, because then you always come out on the other side.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing it. Well, with your range of experience, not just from being in the legal field to bootstrapping your first businesses, all the way now to being a partner in a venture capital firm, you've seen a lot of challenges and a lot of opportunities in Las Vegas in the time. I feel like so many things have changed since COVID. Now, as you're seeing all these other markets, especially with your venture capital hat on, but also being somebody who has bootstrapped a successful organization here, I couldn't wait to ask you this question. What do you see as the biggest challenge in the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Las Vegas right now?
I think the biggest challenge maybe is just, I know, and the city's done a good job of this, but they're always looking for like diversification, right? Like they're like, oh, we're a hospitality town. Like we need to diversify. We need tech. We need this. We need all these other things. And that's all true. But what I do tell young entrepreneurs or people just starting out, I'm like, let's get back to the basics. Like it's okay to start a business that's essential, right? Like the pandemic proved that. The mailbox stores, right? So as you know, I own independent mailbox rental pack and ship stores. These are steady, boring businesses, right? There's nothing sexy about them. There's no, it's not venture capital. It's not $1 million houses. It's not, celebrity golf tournaments with cupcakes, right? Like it's mail. It's literally mail and mailboxes and
Snail
notary.
mail.
You know what I mean? Like it's FedEx. It's UPS. Like, and it's day to day, and it proved, because I started those stores in 2018, it proved to be pandemic proof. We were open the entire pandemic, and in fact, we had a better 2020 than 2019 because of all the shipping, all the kind of increase in mailbox customers, all these things, and to this day, like sharing the SOPs with other people, for them to open up their own store, it's crazy now. There's we have almost 40 people who have gone on to open their own independent store, like all around the country. And it's just, I love that because one, I'm a firm believer we need more small business owners just in America in general. But two, like it's okay for your first venture or your 10th venture to be like a steady, stable, hyper local small business, right? It doesn't need to be the next tech, unicorn. It doesn't need to be the next, mind-blowing, invention that someone else has not thought of, or disruptor, right? Disruptor app that no one else has thought of. It's okay for it to literally be a mailbox pack and ship store that is part of the community, and you'll be able to cash flow it, for years to come.
That's like my favorite words, because the saying in business, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, but cash flow is reality. And a lot of these delusions in the entrepreneurship space is like, oh, I make 10 million revenue, 2 million revenue, whatever it may be. But like they're in the reds, they're still like getting loans.
They're not profitable yet. Yeah.
And like no one talks about the space in between, because social media made that type of information a lot more viral than like the things that we're focused on, which is like, how are you going to pay your bills? Mm-hmm. What is the business that's going to put food on your table so that you are, surviving, So I love that take on that like, it's okay to go back to basic. It's okay to be boring. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with traditions that's lasted, like trades and anything that the young and the uncool TikTok, culture doesn't want to touch. It's like, those are the things that actually is going to make the money to like keep you to go do the next thing. Mm-hmm. So I love your take on that completely.
Well, yeah. And that, I mean, that's gotta be the reality, right? I call it the Shark Tank economy. That's really put this weird kind of jaded like vision over what it is. Oh, if your idea is good enough, then somebody will write you a check for $1 million, and that's the game. Mm-hmm. Like that is not, they don't see behind the curtain. They chop that deal up into 1 million pieces. Mm-hmm. And it's not good. And it's definitely not good for the community, because then everyone's like, oh, you got to work on the pitch. Everything you're working on is the pitch. And then you have all these people that are just working on their deck.
Yeah, like not every company has to raise money.
Exactly. Thank you. Say that again one more time.
Yeah, not every company has to raise money. And that's being said as an investor, right? Yeah. I love investing into companies. That's what the fund does, right? That's literally the job of the fund, is to invest in great veteran-led companies. Not every company has to raise money. It's a lot on founder. It's a lot on your cap table. It's something to consider, right? And really, money is like jet fuel. So when do you need to be raising money? When you're building something that has to be built so fast, so quickly, that you need the iterations because they're costing $600,000 every time you change the prototype, right? Like, that's when you need to be raising money. You don't need to go raise money to open a mailbox store. You can start it yourself, right? I opened 2 stores with less than $60,000. Like, you don't need $1 million check. You don't need 5 fancy investors in suits. You don't need any of that, because at the end of the day, like, if you're getting into entrepreneurship because you want to build something for yourself, you have to remember that if you go out and raise money, you are beholden to your investors, right? At that point now, you have signed paperwork that makes it clear that you have fiduciary duty to your investors. So everything you're doing has to be like in the best interest of the bottom line of the company. And it's just a different lens, right? With the cupcakes, for example, we had the luxury of building slow because we bootstrapped. I didn't have investors breathing down my neck of being like, when are you opening, the next location? When are you guys doing this contract? When are you whatever? We got to do it at our pace and at our leisure because we didn't owe anyone anything on it.
Preach.
Like, we're so excited for that sentence, right?
When's the book come out, by the way? No, so that takes me to one of my favorite questions, which I've been very excited to ask you this as well, because you just have such a well-rounded understanding of all of it. And I do believe that you are one of the voices in this community that can change things, right? You can change the way that people look at what's possible. You can change the way they approach to start businesses. You can change the way they approach growing their business. So thank you for everything that you do. If you had a magic wand and you could add one thing to this city, to this community, to the valley that would change things for the best, what would that be?
I think just maybe more emphasis on, like, I know you touched on it before, like trade and like, these kind of these industries that I think kind of get pushed to the side in pursuit of like the shiny, sexy unicorn tech, whatever, right? Because even cities are out there talking about how they want to attract tech into their city, right? They want to be a tech forward city and all these things. And that's all important. But look, like the plumber, the electrician, the carpenter, like these people are out there making money. They have a profitable small business.
They're hiring people.
Yes,
Yep.
they are job creators. And look, we just went through a Vegas summer, right? Like, I don't know about you guys, but at one of my ship stores, actually, our AC went out. So like, you are so happy to see the HVAC guy. You know what I mean? Because I don't know how to fix HVAC. No one I know in my phone knows how to fix an HVAC, right? So you're like, this man could be Jesus, like
I'll pay you anything.
Yes, you are so excited to have him, like get him on the phone, and then like he has time for you. You're like, I'll meet you at the store whenever, like these trades, these kinds of things that are so crucial to any really business or home, right? Like I think it's so important, really for any community to, I feel like be able to pour into that, right? So like whether that's advocating for that, with kids and like kind of young education, like it's okay for you to go to trade school and start an apprenticeship when you're in high school and like get out and then be working and learn a skill, learn a trade that you will have the rest of your life, that you could build into a business, or you could just go work for a company. That's also okay too. But like, it's okay. Like not everyone has to go be, a sexy tech founder,
TikTok influencer.
Yes. Yeah. Or build some digital product online, like it's okay for you to turn wrenches and, be a mechanic and crush it.
A fun fact, and you're absolutely spot on. Most people do not know this. I'm an electrician.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I went to 1 year in high school and I never thought I'd do it again. And then later in life, when I was working at a youth academy, I had 4 days off, and people were like, "Oh my God, you have 4 days off!" But like, I was making like $12 an hour or something working for the state of Oklahoma, and I was like, "Oh, I'll do something else on the other 4 days." I was an electrician for 4 years,
That's awesome.
and I was right there on the edge where I could easily go back, take my journeyman's test and get the license, because I knew like one day I might need to do this. And
it's just, I feel like it's good practical knowledge to have,
Yep.
right? Like I'm sure the thousands of dollars you've saved yourself of doing whatever work for yourself, like just skills like that like I don't have the knowledge, right? And I realize very quickly like how bad, like I said, you need that HVAC guy and you will pay him whatever it's going to take because you're just like, I have zero, I couldn't do this.
Yeah.
I couldn't fix it
Save
myself.
me, I'm dying.
Yeah, please save us. Yeah.
help. With that, what advice do you have to anyone that's here that's looking to start, or maybe they've been discouraged in the past because they just feel like something's up against them, or maybe they're ready to take that leap? And it's also good advice to anyone that's coming to this city that might have an idea or an ambition of Vegas is the place where I'm going to do this. What advice do you have for them?
So two things. One, especially if they're, looking at Vegas or wanting to come here, I would advocate, if you aren't set on, kind of what product or service you want to like delve into, but you just know entrepreneurship's on your heart, consider something that would cater to a tourist market. We have, 50 million tourists that fly through our airport every year, right? Vegas is already doing the marketing for you. Folks are already coming, and they're already coming with this mentality to spend, right? Even that old campaign of the "What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas," right? Whoever came up with that was genius, because it planted this like mental thing where you're just like, you know what? Like they're not going to buy or do these things at home, but they'll do it here. So one, anything that could cater to a tourist market, I think, if there's ever a test bed to try it, it's Vegas. And two, really just anyone, and this is wherever you are in the journey. I read this months ago, and it just really resonated with me. When you get tired, learn to rest, not to quit.
I'm just going to sit with that.
Because that's real, right? Like
So
when
real.
you are
I
so
felt
tired and you are like unmotivated and you're just like maybe I'm doing this wrong, or like I'm not the one, or whatever it is, and you're just like, this is not working. Like you have to take the time to like recalibrate, because maybe you'll end up seeing it through a different lens, right? And yet I think it's too easy for us to be like, this didn't work. Take it off the table, pivot, whatever it is. And I loved that. It was like just a nice reminder, because all of us go through it. And it's like, learn, like when you get tired, learn to rest, not to quit.
There it is. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well, I want to be mindful of your time. How can people connect with you, and what's next?
Yeah, you can find me on social, Instagram, all the things at Lisa Song Sutton. And as far as what's next, we're getting ready to go into a heavy deployment cycle with the fund. So please, if you know a great veteran-led company that's building in the tech space, send them our way. If we can't help them or invest in them, we have tons of resources, and our team is really good about just making sure that they have, the links for, scholarships to Founder Institute, like really anywhere they are in the journey. We're happy to help provide resources for them if we aren't able to invest into them. And that's the main thing. We'll be really kind of keeping our foot on the gas, over the next kind of 18 months deployment cycle.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for being part of this. And we cannot wait to have you back, because trust me, you're coming back.
Thank you so much. Thanks,
I'm saying
guys.
that on the camera, so you have to be accountable. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Please connect with Dave and I on pursue.vegas or all over our personal Instagram, and connect with Lisa directly, and let us know how we can be of service to you, whatever you're at in your journey, how we can add value or connect you with somebody else that could help you. Peace.
And don't forget, we don't have to change the world. We just got to change the way the world looks at Las Vegas.
Wow.